So let's look at North Carolina and the push for voters there. CBS News correspondent Skyler Henry live from Raleigh. Skyler, you caught up with Democratic Party Chair Anderson Clayton. He's the youngest person ever to win that party in the state. What did you learn?
Yeah, Reed, good to see you as always. It was an interesting conversation. We actually canvassed alongside her and other party volunteers that were looking to get the word out about why they should choose Democrats up and down the ballot, not just on the presidential level, but other hotly contested state races here, including the gubernatorial race. What she had to say was pretty interesting. They are going after some of those unregistered voters, especially those who may be focused on single issues, the economy, reproductive rights, immigration, those who say that they may be pro-abortion rights or against abortion rights. They want to have those conversations with people and try to sway them to vote for Democrats, framing this as a pro-abortion rights sort of thing as it relates to Vice President Harris versus what we see with former President Donald Trump. Here's one of the bits of the conversation that I had with her. Take a listen.
I honestly liked what people were saying this past weekend of, Kamala Harris is the only president who actually protects your right to disagree with her. And a lot of that message is what we're using, especially with unaffiliateds right now, Republicans on the doors that we're talking to, because this is fully a turnout game. And we know that it is going to be whoever can help get the most people out to the polls. But it also has to be through some of these persuasion conversations that we're still having with undecided voters, honestly, even now.
And so an interesting POV there when you take into consideration that we are at this stage of this election cycle. One of the other things that you pay attention to, Reed, when you zoom out altogether, the number of early votes that have already been tabulated here in the Tar Heel State, more than 4.5 million. That is shattering any sort of record that we have seen in the past. And in case you were wondering, that also includes the western part of North Carolina, which was pretty hard hit following Hurricane Helene. After hearing from the Board of Elections, they say that they are moving on without a hitch thus far in terms of counting of the ballots up until this point. We also know that polls will be open early tomorrow, especially in that part of the state. They say that there are some tents that have had to be set up because of the damaged precincts following the storm, but they are now going to be okay. Now, back to that conversation that I had with Anderson Clayton. She also pointed out some other issues that she felt will be incredibly important, but also talked about why she feels as this race in particular will be incredibly important as far as young people turning out to the polls. Take a listen.
We've just got so many young people that have put their hearts and souls into it this year, but they're also scrappy and they were hungry and they wanted to make sure that North Carolina was a state that they could stay in. And I feel like that is something that is pushing a lot of us out this year, is because we don't want to have to leave it. And so many people that I have heard and that I've talked to have been like, if things don't change here, that's what we're going to have to do. And I'm like, no, it deserves to be a state that everybody can stay.
Back to the presidential race, obviously a razor-thin contest here in North Carolina. It's interesting given the fact that a Republican presidential candidate has carried the state since 2012. Former President Trump actually had 4 rallies here since Saturday, including one this morning here in Raleigh. Something else to point out, Reed, is given the fact that this is the only battleground state of the 7 that former President Trump won in 2020. Interesting to pay attention to see how the Trump campaign decides to move forward in these last 24 hours or so to go before this thing all wraps up. The Harris-Walz ticket feels as if it's very much in play. Obviously, in the big Democratic parts or the blue parts of the state, that's Charlotte, that's here in the research corridor, which they call Raleigh-Durham because of the amount of universities and colleges in this area, and also in the western part of the state as well. And so this will be very much a toss-up until the very end. I think it'll be interesting to see once polls close.
Skyler Henry, thank you so much for that peek into what's going on in North Carolina. Literally door-to-door work being done there until the 11th hour.